Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast presented by Zwift. This is the Bike Exchange Jayco team preview. I believe that's what they will still be called next year. They're based on the companies of Jerry, and I'm not sure how well the company itself is going, but anyway, that's what they'll be called next year. Now, they got in trouble this year with the relegation battle. They survived in the end, but whilst they were fighting that battle, they also had one of their best seasons in quite a while. Certainly much, much better than 2021, and I'd argue better than 2022. It wasn't the heyday of
Wait,
2019, but it was much better.
how is it better than 2022 when the year we're talking about is 2022?
Oh, did I say that? Yeah. Better than 2020. It was better than the previous 2 years where they struggled. 2019, like, wow, that was ridiculously good year. They won 4 TDF stages and 34 overall wins. But yeah, they survived relegation. How would you rate the season, Benji? I think they made some pretty like Matthews in the end, loads of points. They don't survive without him or Groenewegen.
Yep, I think that's definitely the case. And Matthews did step it up a tiny bit as well with that Tour de France stage, for example. I think that was it Itzulia or Catalunya, one of those races where he ended up winning that slightly uphill sprint towards the end. So that also happened for him throughout the season. And I'd argue that he had a solid season throughout. He scored points throughout the season, which was valuable for this team because the survival in the relegation system was important for them. Now, I would argue that despite their results, which is, for example, getting forfeit MSR with Matthews is intriguing, but probably not what he hoped for. He's trying to get at least a podium. He's trying to win that bloody race. Let's be honest about it. Couple races, basically no results. Hill Classics, shockingly, basically no results. I feel like I would have expected more from a Matthews in an Amstel, for example, but I don't remember him in that race, so I don't know what happened there. But in 1 week races, I feel like they get limited results. Only second at Paris-Nice and fourth at Bologna. And we don't really see Simon Yates in other races. And they don't have many other riders for those top 10s in GCs anyway. But then we look at Grand Tours. 2 stage wins at the Giro is really good with Simon Yates and Sobrero. But then Yates withdraws with COVID. At the Tour de France, you mentioned it, Groenewegen, Matthews, those guys winning stages. But then the Vuelta, Groves wins, which was something we were looking forward to and expected it to happen. And it happened in that Vuelta a España. But Yates withdraws with COVID. So if Yates doesn't withdraw, he's at least getting a top 5 at one of those 2 Grand Tours, right?
I mean, it is Simon Yates,
Yeah.
so it's tough to know for sure. But I don't know. Would almost rather Simon Yates targets like six World Tour 1 weeks, and if he dodges some of the top guys, he'd probably win one. I mean, he nearly beat Roglic at Paris-Nice. He could have very nearly beat him if maybe Martinez doesn't have that mechanical. So
Or if Van Aert isn't there on the last
yeah,
day.
if Van Aert's just not on a crazy day. But yeah, 22 overall wins and 3, 4, 6, 8, 9 World Tour wins with stage wins in all 3 Grand Tours. That is a very, very tidy haul, as I said, for a team fighting the relegation battle. And let's be realistic, with a significantly lower budget than the other teams. Like, did they have a better season than FDJ?
Ooh, no.
I think they did.
Did they? Nah. Top 5 in the Tour de France. Podium in 2
Invisible.
monuments.
Okay, but
I
where's the wins?
completely forgot most of what Groupama did, even though we recorded that
They
podcast just a
win.
bit ago. But it's just my shit memory, dude.
Maybe. I don't know. The thing is, Bike Exchange structure this year was very clear. They are focused around 3.5 figureheads, which is Matthews, Yates, Groenewegen. That was actually quite effective for wins because apart from Yates with COVID, Groenewegen and Matthews were consistently quite good throughout the year.
Yeah.
The half I said was Groves in the Vuelta. I would say that Groenewegen's scheduling was a little bit curious at times, but it is what it is. The other part is the rest of the team, which really doesn't produce at all. 20 of the other riders. And then there's other talented riders who kind of get, as I said, it's based around the three figureheads who are compelled to ride for them at all costs as if they're peak sky, like a Nick Schultz and co.
Yep. I think that's definitely something we notice in this team. And we see that Sobrero does get his opportunities at time trials and so forth, but in the other race, he's also become a domestique. Lucas Hamilton was a domestique, but ended up getting 12th at the Tour de France, if my memory serves right. Or no, what was it? Where did he get 12th? Lucas Hamilton. He got somewhere. Anyway, I guess
13th in the Giro.
13 in Giro, close enough. 12th in the Tour, 13 in Giro, big difference. But
he's on a fair bit of money, man.
Exactly, they expect more from him, and I feel like he stagnated quite a bit over the last couple of years. And I feel like we see that a lot from the second tier guys on this team. But what I do believe when I look at this team is that we talk about those figureheads. There were a few people that did break through. I feel like Caden Groves has done a tiny bit of a breakthrough. I feel like next year will be his proper breakthrough at the top tier of cycling, perhaps. He won that Vuelta stage for this team, which was valuable. So the value is there in the second tier guys, but I agree that, like, a Callum Scottson, no offense, Sam Bewley, those kind of riders. Durbridge is not really there anymore. Edmondson, I
Jan Maas,
don't
mythical.
remember him. Yeah, that one dude, what Chun Goh, that was a trainee, for example. Haven't seen him in any races, for example. Rob Stannard is gone, so he's at Alpecin now. I forgot about that. And I'm looking at wrong years. So that other guy, that Goh guy, is also not there in the team anymore. So just ditch everything I just said in the last 1 minute.
Cameron Meyer.
Exactly. Those kind of riders, those are not really performing. I feel like Konashev has also completely stagnated and probably is not on this level anymore. Hausen, I don't know. I've never really rated Hausen that much. I feel like you rated him more than I did in previous years as well. But what? Why are you laughing?
I don't know, remember ever saying a positive thing about him. Maybe I did. I probably will. It was like, if this guy, right, if you really think about it, if you swap him and Tadej Pogacar, but you're right. It's a lot of guys that sort of didn't really do very much. That being said, I do think it's unfair on some of the guys, like, who are forced that they can only do a lead out. They have their one goal to go to a race. They can never show themselves do a lead out. Now, Kel O'Brien, that is his job. I thought he was quite good this year for a neo pro, and he was in Dwars Tour. He was fucking strong in Dwars Tour, Kel. That's the thing. Some of these riders, when they do get a chance, they show these huge flashes, and you're like, holy shit, you're a good rider. His normalized power for that race was unbelievable, and mixing up with Peacock Vanderpool. And Nick Schultz, I think, had a breakthrough season. And, he went off favourite in a couple of Tour de France stages. And on the Périgord stage was in the last group of 10 guys, which it didn't mean anything. And Court beat him in the photo and Mishev. But I thought he had a breakthrough. A guy who's off in the domestique. It's hard to criticize them, Benji, because in the end of the day, they got the wins by pursuing the traditional leader strategy, domestique hierarchy, and eventually were quite comfortably away from relegation.
I feel like last year we criticized Bike Exchange quite a bit when it comes to their tactics in races, as in they were trying to go for Matthews from the peloton, for example, every single stage with somewhat of a hill towards the end. They did that all from the peloton. Do you feel like they changed from that a tiny bit? Because I swear there was one race where, was it the Matthews victory where they did so from the break when we were proud of them?
I couldn't believe my eyes. It was the opposite, because it much tougher competition, and the people in that break were unbelievably strong. And he's gone away solo at 55 Ks, and then got caught on the Monte Jalabert by Bettiol, and then came back and dropped him. Unbelievable win. And I don't know if that means they'll always pursue that strategy, but it was good to see them do something different. And I think Schultz was in that break too. Yeah, Matthews, unbelievable year. Like over 2,000 UCI points. This guy is lent on so heavily. He only competes, pretty much apart from the Mallorcan races, he only competes at World Tour level. And to
Yeah.
win a Tour de France stage, second in two. It's a huge workload on this guy, even though the race days aren't that high. They're very, very high level only. So Matthews, unbelievable year, their most valuable rider, and to have that Tour de France win, I mean, worthy of the extension, extended out to 25. I think they had to keep him because just for the points, even if he goes back to sort of being, always second and third, that's still a lot of points. So I think it's
Yep.
worth re-signing him.
I think so as well, especially knowing that the Canadian races exist and that you can pick up like 600 points in each of them
Yep.
if you win that race. That's
Cadell's.
fucking crazy. Eh? Yeah, Cadell's, those kind of races. But also next to that, I think the other aspect when it comes to this team is that Groenewegen has a sprint train. I feel like their sprint train has an issue where it is good in races where there are not many other sprint trains. Like in a Saudi tour, they and Lotto were the one train that went for it. So they're just fighting against one train. And they have a much easier way of keeping themselves at the front then. But in races where there's so much competition to be at the front, they seem to fail to stay at the front.
They should go after Sinkeldam. They need an experienced lead out.
Yeah,
Mezgets took a step back. He wasn't in his 2020 form. And you pair Sinkeldam with O'Brien and maybe have a setup man. I think
yeah,
that's looking much, much better. But before we get to some of their transfers, mentioned Bike Exchange, one of the teams that use Zwift, and the pro training camps are here for winter with training programs or workouts from pro cycling superstars from Ineos, Jumbo Visma, Bike Exchange-Jayco, and Movistar. For example, there's the Geraint Thomas workout, which has got some sort of threshold intervals with some anaerobic stuff at the end. There's the Pidcock workout, which predictably has about 12 anaerobic intervals. There's loads of workouts to keep you going, and I think PBs count as well from those workouts if you do them, and then you have the hollow when you go back to normal cruising around the world. So go and check out Zwift. I'm on it every day pretty much at the moment and cranking out the hours, being very consistent. And I'm already, after I said a month or so of good consistency, I'm feeling a lot better and I can already feel the improvements. The watts that were sort of a little bit, breathing a bit heavily, now I can do without too much bother at all. I can mess around, talk trash with Benji on Discord. So improvements fast, perhaps bang for buck, better even than being outdoors, particularly in the winter and the snow at the moment. So go to Zwift.com, get a free trial, and check it out today through the link down below. Transfers, Benji. Have we wrapped up there? We've wrapped up their season. I think it was a good season. We're giving it a tick. Thumbs up.
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Good season.
Okay, thumbs up.
Transfers. This is where it's tough. A lot of Anzacs. You look at the outgoing.
Oh,
Cameron Meyer retired. Dion Smith to Intermarché. Bauer and Howson to Q3 6.5 Pro Cycling Team, the new Doug Ryder one. Schultz is going to, I think, was supposed to go to B&B, but that project looks like it's completely falling through. Unfortunately for him, Groves is probably one of their top 5 riders. He's gone to Alpecin to Koenig, Edmondson to DSM, Bewley's retired, Konashev not sure. To be honest, Benji, apart from Groves and Schultz, they're not, all those riders are very replaceable.
I agree there. And I think we mentioned it before. The riders that I named that were not necessarily adding too much to the team anymore, like a Konashev, like a Bewley, like an Edmondson, those kind of riders are leaving. So it does confirm that they also don't see the value necessarily. A Bewley perhaps is retiring, so we can't really put him in the same quota there. Cameron Meyer, same story. Kungert, I haven't seen him in a while, to be honest. And I do think that a Nick Schultz is one of those riders, and a Groves. Those are the two ones, together with Dion Smith, where I'm like, those three are good riders. So I'd argue that if they can still get Nick Schultz back after the whole
I don't think they have
debacle with,
roster space.
they don't.
I don't think
Well,
so.
they can ditch one of the riders they're signed. They can
He's
send the Marquis
fucked.
home again. Uh,
Quickstep should sign him.
I think it's actually not a bad call. I think he could be a domestique for the Remco terrain, but
Yeah.
also could be doing some stuff for himself throughout the season as well, quick-step style. Then again, one thing that I do want to mention when it comes to these outgoing riders is that there's a lot more Australians outgoing and New Zealand riders outgoing than incoming. And we notice that they're kind of losing their Australian identity. And I think we mentioned this before. They missed out on Plapp. They're losing Groves. They missed out on O'Connor. There's probably a lot of other Australians and so forth that they missed out on. Are they? Yeah, they've lost their identity, right? As in, is it still their goal
Well,
to be Australian, or is it their goal to be a team
I don't know.
internationally?
Like, they don't have the best Australian riders on the team anymore. Well,
Matthews?
they have Matthews. He's probably Matthews. No Hindley, O'Connor, Ewan, fine. Simon Clark couldn't get a contract there. Haig, Plapp, Stannard, Schultz, Storer, Dennis. They don't have him. So yeah, and I think like why wouldn't this team give a decent contract offer to Aaron Gate? He's better than half this team. He's a good rider. Aaron
Yep.
Gate on Black Spoke. Maybe Black Spoke because the Kiwi project, he wants to stay there and they give him a better salary, but still, like Aaron Gate can do things. I don't know,
Yep.
and listen, budget might be tough. It might not be. Like, I don't know. Maybe Nook Schultz wanted to leave and he was sick of being a domestique. I kind of sympathise with that. But when you look at the incomings, Harper was good at Jumbo Visma when he in the last half of this year. He was very, very good in the Dauphiné, very strong, and the Vuelta he was very, very good. And I don't think he's on $1 million. So tick, good signing. Blake Quick and Rudy Porter from Trinity. They're young prospects. Quick's a sprinter, I think, nominative determinism. So, happy with that. It's the other signings, Benji. It's like, really? Zidnek Stibar and Alessandro DeMarchi combined age of 75? Like, if Stibar's on a low contract and the goal is to score some points in World Tour Classics or help Matthews, I think that's fine. But DeMarchi, man, come on.
Yeah.
Why to me, it seems like Brent Copeland, or I'm not sure. I've seen he obviously speaks Italian. I'm not sure he lives in Italy, but like the team has started to sign a lot of Italian riders who aren't that special. And DeMarchi's not that good. And they've signed Zana from Bardiani, who is fine. But that's all he is. He's like quite good. But is he better than he's not better than Nick Schultz, that's for sure. And like Postelberger, they're signing kind of misc stage hunters who are a lot of them past their prime. Zana accepted.
I think the one thing that is a light at the end of the tunnel for me when it comes to the mark is that it's a 1-year contract. If it was like a 3-year contract, I'd have been
True.
walking through the street with signs like, this is not okay. Now I'm like, okay, this is not the end of the world. He's probably not on the biggest amount of money. He can still be valuable as a domestique. The marquee is relatively okay as a domestique. I think he can still go into breakaways and be something of that, but I don't believe he's going to significantly move the needle, and I feel like he might just take up the role that Houston had at the team, which was not necessarily the most important rider in the team in the first place. So I guess it's something that happened, and I guess depending on the season, we can see whether he is allowed to stay or not for the season afterwards, because then he's going to be even older. Now, when it comes to Stibar, we're looking at a transfer where he's also quite old. He came from Quickstep. He hasn't had the best season at all in 2022, but going to Bike Exchange at the age of 37, he will be also a 1-year contract. So those are the things that I like about these contracts. That it's a 1-year contract. If it was longer than that, I'd have a lot more issues with it. Because Stibar is also probably not going to be on the most amount of money. And he's got that rouleur type riding style and can be valuable in the couple races where he can at least get perhaps a top 10, or can perhaps be a rider that scores in 1.1 races for this team. So I don't know if they're going to send him to that, though. I think it sucks in my eyes that they spend their money on riders like DeMarc and Zdenek Stibar, the older guard in cycling, but I also don't think it's a nightmare.
I mean, if you want to talk about scouting, like, DeMarchi's probably paid more than Andrea Piccolo.
Yeah. That's the issue, eh?
Like, that's the difference scouting makes. And this is like, by scouting, I mean like you you go to your television, and when the race is on,
You watch.
you turn it on. Maybe not even the full race, just the last hour. Just
Yeah.
turn it on, or you go to computer, open PCS, and you just log in. That's what I mean by scouting. I don't mean anything special. Purcellberger, yeah, a bit of a strange signing, but I presume it'll be stage hunting or ruler domestique. Engelhardt from Tyrol, don't really know him. Doesn't have much. And Valehagos Berre from EF Education Nippo Dev Team. I feel like he got a decent
Yeah.
result in
Lombardia, U23.
yeah, fourth there, 10th in a please be a mountain stage. Yep, in the mountain stage of L'Avenir. That's I don't have a problem with that signing. 7th in Baby Giro, I think. Oh no, sorry. Valadosta Mont Blanc. Yeah, he's 21. Not a problem with signing. Matthew Dinham, I think, signed for DSM. He's like potentially a prospect they could have signed. I'm sure he was on Bridge Lane. Conti team, he came 7th in the U23 road race. He's 22. He did quite well in the French sort of 2.2 circuit, very well actually. So he was maybe the biggest Australian GC prospect available, but he's gone to DSM for 3 years. Maybe they'll get him when he's 25 and they've prepared him and ruined him. No, just kidding, sort of. So, yeah, like the signings, Eddie Dunbar, I would say, is on the most money. We already
Yeah.
discussed that signing at length. I think he's not who they think he is or hope he is. And
I think
do you like what's their target with him? Or is he just actually? Am I wrong? Is he a domestique for Simon Yates, a luxury dom?
he should be a domestique for Simon Yates. I think he should be a luxury domestique where possible, but I don't think he's consistent enough in that way where he can always be a luxury domestique. And that's also an issue. He's going to be a mid-tier domestique in most races, but might step up to a luxury domestique role in some races like he did for Carapaz in that Tour de Suisse at Ineos. But the issue that I have with these transfers as well is that when we look at Dunbar, when we look at Harper, these are riders that come from teams that are those are not the Cofidis of this world. A Cofidis, if you sign a rider from Cofidis, that if you teach a guy about aerodynamics and so forth, you can get that guy to step up a tiny bit compared to what he was at Cofidis, for example. If you sign someone from Jumbo and Ineos, you expect them to have been drilled with the aerodynamics and the marginal gains and getting them a tiny bit better at those teams to the point where I feel like it's more likely that they step down a level when you get them from Ineos and Jumbo. No?
Um, Harper, I think, will be fine. I think he had a few struggles at Jumbo, some injury. I think something with his eye. I think he should be fine. The thing is, Dunbar, they need to improve. So, is he going to improve at what is he 25? Coming from Ineos? To your point, I agree. I think it's unlikely. They let Groves. Would you have re-signed? This is the thing. Groenewegen signed big money. Did win a Tour de France stage. Groves out the door. Like, are you surprised Alpecin outbid them for Groves?
I feel like it's a great signing from the Alpecin perspective because they've got Philipsen in that team that is now grown up to be the Tour de France sprinter. And I'd argue that for the Tour de France in this year, which is 2023 that we're talking about, then Philipsen will be the main sprinter for that team. Now, they signed Groves, which I think is Philipsen, but 1 to 1.5 years earlier in his career, in the sense that he just started winning that first Vuelta stage, for example, that Philipsen won in 2020. I think in 2023 is the year that Gross can step up by winning stage at the Giro, for example. I feel like he needs to go to the Giro, those stages where it's a sprint but has those hills in the stages. Those are the kind of stages where Groves can have an upper hand towards the pure sprinters like a Merlier and so forth. So that's, I think, possible where he can step up there. And I think 2024 is when Groves will ride Tour de France sprints at the team of Alpecin. But then again, Philipsen is still at Alpecin in 2024. So this ruins my entire idea behind it. But Then when we take about when you take a look at Groenewegen, what's his contract like, by the way? How long is Groenewegen at the team of Bike Exchange? Until 2024. So it's kind of the same, eh? If he goes to Alpecin, he might have a chance to become equal to Philipsen in 1.5 years. If he stays here, he might have a chance to become the more versatile option compared to Groenewegen, but might still not get a Tour de France spot. So I don't know.
Is Dylan Groenewegen a good enough rider that he merits being able to sign his mates who are no good because he wants some Dutch friends on the team?
I would argue counterpoint. The thing with Jan Maas is when we take a look at Jan Maas as a rider, when we take a look at his results, it's not that special, right? Like
But if
it's
you
just
reverse him and Pogacar, you've had to do that bit. Are you doing a bit?
No, I'm not doing that bit. I'm talking about the fact that apparently all his teammates rate him very highly in kind of like an Arashiro role, where we value Arashiro as like the bidon guy at Bahrain, being the early domestique and so forth that you don't see in races, and apparently Jan Maas is that role. So if that's his role and he's getting paid the salary to do that role, then I'm fine with it because he seems to be versatile enough to do that role based on his results. But then I look at the rider they signed, Elmar Reinders, and he wins like
He's
1.1
30, bruh.
races. He wins 1.1 races and so forth, but I don't see the step up from here. Is it a guy that they sent to 1.1 races just to make sure they don't have
He's
to fight
never
for
won
the
a
relegation
1.1
battle?
race.
What was the race he won this year, Reinders?
That was Le Tour de Bretagne Cycliste 2.2 stage, which
Oh yeah, oops.
is, and the Circuit des Ardennes, which is for French university
National.
students. Okay?
Okay.
Like, he's competing against 19-year-old French kids.
Yeah, you're right. He won the 2 race. That was probably the thing I was looking at.
Yeah, so he's mates with Groenewegen. Otherwise, I don't know what's going on. I would say that Groenewegen is not good enough to merit signing friends and family. You'd say Dylan, he's in a, anyway.
Actually, I disagree. I think Groenewegen is good enough to be able to do that if the team was good enough to support him and get him to a competitive position in sprints in the first place. I think that's the main issue. I think Groenewegen is one of the top 5 sprinters in the world, while he does not have the support that gets him competitive.
I think there's like one. Honestly, I think there's like 2 riders in the world who you should actually sign friends and family, and that's Pogacar and Evenepoel. I think everyone else, I'd tell the rider, no, thank you. You like seriously, GM LeBron, who it's only Pogacar and Evenepoel. Like I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think you should be signing riders if they're not improving your team, unless the rider that wants them signed is just ridiculously good and it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Which I don't think Groenewegen is. So they're the signings. I'll be interested to see how they go. And to be honest, it looks like they're going to stay with the 3-headed spear of Groenewegen, Matthews, and Yates, which served them pretty well last year. So that's that. Their signings. Where do you think? Like, what's next for them?
I think Simon Yates went to the Giro and the Vuelta, coveted out of both, but I think the Tour de France is the Grand Tour in 2023 for Simon Yates because that Grand Tour has limited time trial capabilities necessary.
He can win
He
that
has
TT.
decent TT capabilities, but I still think the Tour de France is the one to go for because he's been prepping for the Giro every single year now. It hasn't really worked out. The Tour de France is the one to go for and aim for that podium spot against the likes of a Carapaz Adiev, against the likes of whoever Bora sends, whoever Ineos sends. I think we're looking at trying to get the third spot at the Tour de France. Or do you think that he can compete with Pogacar and Vingegaard at the Tour de France?
No, but that's like who can. So it's can he? If everything goes right for Simon Yates, which is a big if, can he compete for third at the Tour de France with that? I think he'll be taking time on someone like Carapaz on that TT. Yes.
Yep.
So I think has to do the Tour. Matthews will do the Tour. Groenewegen will do the Tour probably. Jesus, like how are they going to fit that all in? Because they think in their mind that Simon Yates needs 7 mid domestiques who actually don't make a difference to him winning or losing,
Yeah.
but they think they need to construct a peak sky roster. In reality, they don't. He just needs to follow for third, and he needs two domestiques. And then you have the rulers set up men for the lead out for the sprinter. They do that same job for the GC guy. So do they take? Is this a tour for Matthews? If there's loads of flat
No.
sprints, it's a waste sending
Giro
him.
Vuelta
Yeah, I
is
think
what
so.
I would think of. And also because, like, if you send them to the France, who the fuck is going to do the Giro and the Vuelta for this team?
Jesus David Penna, Kevin Collion.
Legendary rider. Still don't believe
Demarquis doing the Giro, right?
Yeah, but he's not going to be moving the needle in the Giro alone. I think Lucas Hamilton will probably do a Giro or a Vuelta.
Yeah, he'll do Giro.
That kind of stuff. I think Matthews should do the Giro and the Vuelta. True.
And the Cobble Classics.
This is very difficult to
he shouldn't do the tour. It's a waste. It's him spending 21 race days leading out Groenewegen is pointless.
Yep.
He should do something else because he's too important for the team. So yeah, Groenewegen plus lead out with Yates with some climbing domestiques will be the tour, or should be the tour, one would think. And Yates going for third, and then I reckon they'll pick up 2 stage wins. They are good at picking up stage wins. Giro, yeah, as you said.
Sobrero?
Yeah, Sobrero will do the Giro.
Zana?
TTKs. Zana, yeah. Demarquis, Zana, Sobrero, Collioni, Lucas Hamilton, Craddock with the TTKs, or they might do the tour. Maybe Matthews. So yeah. Perstelberger, who knows? He might be a ruler, could be in either squad. Classics is Matthews, right? It has to be. And Groenewegen for like Brugge de Panekerner.
Stibar, Matthews, Perstelberger, Amon Grøndal Jansen. Those are the names that pop up into my mind. Luca Mesgaj probably for a few of them. Do you send Callan O'Brien to them knowing he was so good at Dwarves of Vlaanderen?
Yeah, it has to. It's not like there's 8 superstars filling out the roster.
Exactly. Durbridge will probably be popped into that team as well. So that is definitely possible. And then Jesus David Peña just to see if he can get not lost.
Poor guy. Yeah. I think I'm not sure what races he'll be sent to. Oh, we've got Dunbar. Will he do Giro? Or no, he'll be domestic for Yates in the Tour. Yeah.
Has to, I think.
Yeah.
And also next to that, 1 week race, if they do want to do what I think they will do, they'll probably try and get him to be a GC leader in a 1 week race to test that out. I have no issue with them testing that out, but I don't necessarily see it getting a podium in a World Tour race. But he can prove me wrong. I'm fine with being proven wrong. I feel like he's more likely going to end up being a domestique for Yates, and that will be the end of it, I think, for Eddie Dunbar mostly. Then again, I do expect him in the Hill Classics, for example, where Demarquis and so forth also will be riding, and Matthews will be on Amstel for certain. Will he be in Flesh and LBL?
He's actually quite good in Flesh. He probably will. That's
LBL,
the thing.
nah.
Yeah, maybe he should just do. I mean, he can't win Flesh, but he can score some points. So it's like, should you bother? Should he not do Amstel early and then Giro and have time to prepare for the Giro? Because if he does Liège, that makes it tough, as we discussed for Evenepoel. So, yeah, I think they're going to have to be careful with Matthews' race days. The Tour Down Under's back with Cadell's as well, and maybe the Torquay Classic. So that's good for the team, and that'll be hype. We'll be going. Fingers crossed, if we should be, and
if logistics are being done, we should be.
Yeah. We should be. We'll be going, and well, I'll be in Australia anyway. I don't know where you'll be, Benji. You'll be in Belgium, but I'll be going back to Australia for Christmas anyway. Who do they? I think Harper will go for GC there, or should Matthews go for GC? He can win GC at TDU this year.
I don't know the parkour. I have to take a look at it first. Does Wollonga Hill still exist? Because like back in the day,
I don't think Wollonga's in it. I think they're doing like 2 reps of Norton Summit.
Santos Down Under is the race I've played the most on Pro Cycling Manager in my life, because I've started so many career modes on that game, and every single time the first race was the Santos Down Under or either San Juan. And because of that, I've ridden up Wollonga Hill more than I've ridden up my own street, technically. So if Willinga Hill is in it, I know every inch. I know every inch of Willinga Hill. But then again, nah, I don't know. Who do we expect to be there?
Yeah, I'm looking. So they don't do it. They have,
Groenewegen,
yeah, they have. I think should do it. I think Groenewegen will do Saudi tour, um,
probably.
and those races instead, like the Middle Eastern sprint race, and they have to go to Saudi because they got a co-sponsor is Saudi thing. So yeah, I think TDU will be hype. I know it's not the biggest race for most teams, but for this team, it's important. And I think it'd be good to see them actually sending a good rider to target it properly for the GC win. Any other thoughts on Bike Exchange, Benji? Who I don't know. It's tough, right? Living at the behest of whether a sort of billionaire sponsor is interested in continuing to fund the team. It's really tough because it's like you can plan for everything, you can try and improve the team, you have a long term project, but at the end of the day, the decision making is kind of out of your hands regarding budget. That's the problem with cycling. Um, where do you see this team at the end of next year? Do you think they'll be in a position to make a splash for a big rider? Do you see them developing young riders really well? Or are they just treading water with kind of the well-known stars again for the near future, Matthews, Yates, Groenewegen?
I think they stagnate towards the end of next year. I think their transfers won't be moving the needle, and I think they'll get perhaps similar. I think their season might be slightly worse than 2022. And the reason that I think so is that Simon Yates going to the Tour de France will make it a lot harder for him to do anything. So he might get the same results as in Grand Tours in 2022, which is nothing because of the COVID stuff. And I think a podium at the Tour de France might be just above his capabilities. I think Matthews is not an all winner. So I hope he can step it up and win more. But I fear that it's going to be a similar year for him. They've lost growth, so they won't necessarily be winning more than what they have been winning. And I don't see a Stibar or Demarchi winning races for the team. So I think it's going to be a worse season in 2023 than 2022.
Yep. I think that's probably likely because 2022 was a good year. And when you look at sort of Haig, Hindley, O'Connor, Vine, none of them are available at the end of next year. And, you would say, well, like this is what I mean by the scouting, right? Like, how did this team not pick up O'Connor when Quebecer folded or
Yeah.
NTT? How? Or could they not afford Hindley, or did they spend it on Groenewegen? And Groenewegen probably did he score more UCI points than Hindley? Possibly. How were they not giving Vine an offer after his flashes in
Yeah.
2021 at Alpecin? And it just something's not quite right with like I'm not saying they have to sign every Australian as charity. I'm talking about the good ones
Yeah.
who often get overlooked in World Tour. Why didn't that happen? And I don't think that will change because no one in World Tour. No, well, actually, that's not true. For the first time, Benji, didn't Ineos fire 3DSs or not renew them?
They have changed some of their management.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact details, but I do know that they there were a lot of rumors when it comes to like staff change in the World Tour peloton this year. It feels like it's like they're moving the chairs
Ramati was
around a
supposed to be
tiny bit,
leaving.
and then he didn't leave, and
Yeah.
then at Ineos we had
Do you reckon that was true? The
Ramadi
Bramati thing?
leaving. Nah,
Nah, because he was on Instagram like 5 minutes after being like, "This is BS."
yeah, exactly. And I don't think he would say that if there was any truth in it, because then you're kind of shooting in your own foot by doing so. But
Maybe it was true, and then they
then
worked
he's
it
like
out.
backpedaling. Oh god, oh god.
I mean,
The
that's the
favorite wasn't
thing.
supposed to know.
Has anyone been fired at Israel?
I don't
Like,
think
I'm
so.
not praying for people to be fired, but I'm just saying, like, in any other sport, if you have that budget and you get relegated, people
Yeah,
would be fired. Like,
yeah,
and if you don't, then don't. If you don't change the people that got you into a mess or whatever, then things won't change because why
yeah.
would they?
Very true.
So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, Bex, what's what's the hot take? Positive hot takes for next year, Benji. I think Matthews wins Amstel because I think the Ardennes will be a little bit light. We might not see Van Aert or Van der Poel. I think he wins Amstel.
Okay.
If Kwiato can win it, no offense to Kwiatkowski, and that was Ineos team tactics, but
Yeah.
I think Matthews can win it.
I see that as possible. I also see the possibility that he just takes both the Canadian races, because the Canadian races will now not be a World Championships
True. Prep race.
so there might be a lighter field there as well. So I think Matthews picks up one or perhaps
Quebec.
even two of those races. That's possible. Takes a lot of points there, for example. I think Groenewegen is going to win it Tour de France stage again. It's not a hot take. Like, the thing with hot takes, I find hot takes really annoying. Let me go on a rant about hot takes.
Because you're scared to be crazy like me.
Not like, I don't like saying stuff that I don't believe in. And a hot take, if it's too hot, is unrealistic. Like, there's hot takes that can be realistic, but this team just doesn't have it. Like, who the fuck in this team is going to overperform significantly? Like, I don't see it happening. Like, Zana's not going to do it. Simon Yates not going to overperform necessarily because he's not going to win the Tour suddenly.
Yeah, like
Campbell
it's stupid.
Stewart,
It's stupid for us to be like Filippo Zana's going to win Tour de Suisse. Like,
case with David Pena is going to win a Romandy stage.
Yeah,
He's not even going to be sent. He's not even good enough to be sent.
Mate, he's already off the team. So, but you're right. Like, yeah, I could sit here and say use your next DBAR podiums Tour of Flanders, but yeah, that's the thing. Because a lot of the riders, even if they do get to a good level, they're a domestique a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get exposed.
Is Alexander Balmer a BRC Tech Piccolo?
Who is Alexander Balmer?
Swiss rider, 9th in Giro del Veneto, 9th in Maryland Classic.
Nah, don't disrespect Piccolo. I mean, he's 22. I don't have a problem with signing a young guy like that. He seemed to be
he should be a tutor.
Yeah, he seems like not quite to the World Tour level. He could have probably done it with a bit of polishing elsewhere. But you're right, Benji. It's like I think Groenewegen doesn't win a World Tour race next year.
Really?
No, don't think he wins one.
I disagree.
I think the lead out's a little bit of an issue. And
that's true.
When he does get in a straight line in good position, as he saw in Hungary, and you're like, oh, Tour de Hungary. No. He was against Jakobsen there. He fucking torched him in stage 4. Like, went past him like Jakobsen wasn't pedaling. But it doesn't always go to plan. And, that was Tour de Hungary was about 4 of the 5 stages were pure sprint stages, and he didn't come top 5 in the other 3 sprint stages. And we're talking like stage 1 was a pure-ish sprint. He, was behind Moschetti and Rudy Barbier and Nelly Viviani, who's washed. So that's the problem I see. And unless he goes to the right program, second in Brugge de Panda, he's quite good this year, wasn't he, Groenewegen? He's very fast, but yeah, I don't think he wins a World Tour race. He's gonna win. Fuck, if he goes to TDU, you're gonna do TDU or UAE Tour, win like 2 at each. They don't count.
They do count.
I have to, but you're right. Like, what else? Like, who do I see a big upside from? Because if Eddie Dunbar, like, it just seems so unrealistic that this guy will go from Ineos, as you said, to like a World Tour GC guy. It just seems so unrealistic.
Yeah. Like, it's for most of the riders like that. And it's also because the transfers that come in are the older riders towards the end of their career, like a Stibar and a DeMarchi, where we don't see that upside, and we can't call out a hot take of like DeMarchi's going to podium Amstel Gold Race, because he never really had that capability in the last 3 years in the first place. I think he competed in Amstel for top 10 like 4 years ago, but that's not there anymore. So I don't know.
Chris Harper will win a Vuelta stage and KOM. And I would say a Tour de France stage, but the problem is, even if he does have the shape to, now maybe I'll be proven wrong, because Schultz did get that freedom this year, but Harper will be chained to Yates, and Whereas they didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't have a GC guy at the Tour this year. So on the sort of medium mountain
Hamilton?
stages,
No, he wasn't. The
he didn't do
Giro.
it.
You're right.
So Schultz got freedom. There's no GC guy to chain him to. And now if Yates does it, Harper won't get that freedom if he goes there. He'll be a domestique. But I think he's
Yeah.
in very, very good shape at the Vuelta. And if he has that, he's more than capable of winning a Vuelta stage next year, which I'd like to see him do. He's very good in hot conditions, Harper, like really hot
Okay.
conditions. So he should, do UAE plus. I think he will top 5 UAE tour as well, Chris Harper. And even if they send Dunbar as GC leader, I think Harper will drop him.
Okay. So he's kind of going to be like when Vingegaard was riding off the front on Jebel
Solaison.
Jais.
On
And Colton Kirby was like, "Oh, Chris Harper is going on." Now it's actually going to be Chris Harper going on the front.
Yes. I think Chris Harper at UAE will do well.
Okay,
and could
I believe you.
Could win a stage 2. I think,
Okay.
But I'm not sure if we classify them as hot takes. Probably not lukewarm, but yeah, that's what I see for the team. Any last thoughts, Benji, before we get out of here on Team BikeExchange-Jayco? I have to say, you're right. It kind of doesn't feel like my Australian team. I know they are, and
I miss Adam Yates at Bike Exchange.
I mean, they just couldn't have matched UAE's money. It's just
Yeah,
they couldn't.
but 1 week races would have been a lot more fun.
Yeah. It's tough because if one of the big 3 get injured, you're all of a sudden, it really does stuff your program. But anyway, that was Bex. Maybe there's not too many people out of contract at the end of 23. But we'll see what they do next year. I'm hopeful they perform. I'm looking forward to see Rudy Porter and Blake Quick. Blake Quick is Caden Groves 2.0. Got some Fuju stage wins. And so I think he could be quite good. So good to see him in. Pardon?
Pretty quick.
He is. Yep. I can't. If God forbid he wins the stage, Kirby will. He's already prepping it. Anyway, I love it. All right, that's all from us on the Bike Exchange preview.
Like all you people from the Oceanic region, like Corbin Strong, Blake Quick, what do you guys do with your names down there? Lanterne Rouge isn't really fitting there, but
I don't know. It's just, we like to say what we're good at, I guess. It's better than having a surname out of my pants, like your superstar. So, what is it actually? It's out of the marsh, right? Brooks is like a marsh or a bog. What is Brooks?
Brooks. I don't know. I think broek is pants, like trousers.
Yeah.
But Brooks I've never heard of.
Out of Brooks.
Yeah, out of the trousers is what I would say.
Right, yeah. So don't be questioning me on names when your superstar is called Out of the Trousers and Green Wagon.
He's not Belgian.
Dutch speaking, mate.
Green Wagon? Greenway. Greenway.
Is it Greenway? All right, Greenway. That's actually
Green Roads.
That's not that weird.
Yeah.
All right. And you got a reindeer as well. And see, you've started this now.
No, Netherlands got a reindeer. Stop putting the Dutch riders in Belgium.
I need to find some Belgian people.
I'm scared.
Yeah, all right. I'll come back to you on that one. That's all from us today. Thanks to Zwift as always. And we'll see you with a preview of, we're not sure yet, maybe Bahrain next. Until then.